Hello gang, and welcome to our YouTube channel. We would like to use this opportunity to thank you all for your support and to welcome you to another YouTube video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button in order to support our channel. Now, let's start with the video. We all love hiking, right? Well, imagine this situation. You walk in the woods and you come across a field full of strangely beautiful people. At first, you think they may be human just like you, but upon closer examination you discover that their features are too perfect. Of course, it may not raise a red flag yet, and you proceed on the field to get a better look and introduce yourself, and somehow you step inside a ring of mushroom and flattened grass. Whoa, bad move. Their expression quickly turns from curiosity to anger. You begin to feel ill, and of course you try to apologize and explain your actions, but they are already disappearing into the depths of the forest. Too late, friend, you have been elf-shot. Yeah, you heard that right. Those people, they're elves. You had an encounter with mythical creatures that appear to be human in nature, but they have magical powers and they never get old, or they get old just very slowly. It appears that elves originate from Germanic lore, but they are also found in other European folklore. Elves may be the most beautiful creature that you will ever meet, and they are known to be sociable and even friendly toward you, but word of advice, don't get too comfortable. They are also famous because of their bad temper. If they only suspect that you will harm them or offend them in any way, they will punish you, as simple as that. Common punishments are attacks, night terrors, illness, or cruel tricks, but on the bright side, elf may help a lost traveler find his way home, or they may even help to cure sickness. Yeah, these bad boys are not that bad after all. And there are some folktales about elves who lived in peace with humans and even formed a relationship with them. You guessed that right, there are also folktales about half-elf, half-human babies. And those babies, they were beautiful, and since they are half-elves, and as we say, elves have magical powers, these babies grew up to be great magicians, wizards, or healers. Most of the elves mentioned in the folktales are female, but of course there are male elves as well. The description of an elf appearance varies depending on the location and the time period that the story takes place in. It appears that the majority of female elves are known to be beautiful creatures, with blue eyes and blonde hair and characteristics that are similar to humans, but much more perfect in nature. On the other hand, male elves were often described as an old man, but there are some extremely handsome elves that appear and seduce human women. The elves are similar to human in shape and size, but there are cases when some Anglo-Saxon writers describe them as tiny beings with wings and surprisingly similar to fairies. This is the naughty version of elves that enjoy playing tricks on humans. The elves are connected with the woods, but there are some folk tales in which the elves lived into hollow trees or even underneath the earth. But then again, this was the address of almost all supernatural creatures in early European myths and legends. One giant leap forward, in the present days, as you presume, most people lost their faith in the existence of the elves, but there still remains a large population who maintain their beliefs of the existence of elves in Iceland. The government of Iceland has taken special precautions to ensure that the homes of their beloved elves are protected in modern days. Fun fact, a law was passed in 2020 forbidding construction in any area that was believed to be populated by elves in Iceland. Okay, let's go back to the Dark Ages. In that time, many illnesses that could not be diagnosed by doctor were thought to be caused by the elf. In some culture, a person would become sick if an elf cast a spell on him. In other cultures, however, an elf shot a man with an invisible arrow that carried sickness. So the easiest and most common diagnosis was elf shot. The elves were also blamed to be cause of nightmares and night terrors, sometimes as punishment for an offense, but sometimes as a joke. Well, it's not the funniest joke, don't you think? And we already mentioned that elves are considered to be magical creatures, and the most common magic that they were connected with was alchemy. There are many folk tales that reference an elf giving humans something that appeared to be worthless, such as charcoal or a stone that had magically transformed into gold by the time that they had returned home. The elves sometimes valued human babies over their own kind. There are many speculations why that may happen, but there are two main theories. The first is that the elves are fond of the human babies that they stole because of their fair hair and their blue eyes. The second theory is a bit more brutal. The elves were sacrificing the stolen human babies to the king of hell. Regardless of what their motivation is, God forbid the suffering of losing a child to the elves. It's not the best feeling ever to spend your life mourning for your stolen child, so the elves start with their tricks. When they come to steal away a child, they usually left elf child on the place of the stolen infant. This elf child is known as changeling. It looked human, but it was also afflicted with unexplained illnesses. Now, think about what is worse, to have your baby stolen by the elves or to discover an elf baby in the cradle. Often due to many issues that came with these elf babies, they were killed before they had a chance to reach early childhood. Yes, the story so far, the elves are not the most polite creatures to mess with. But where they came from? Again, many sources about their origin. Some sources seems to think that the elves appear from Cain's murder to Abel. In the legend of Beowulf, it is clearly stated that elves came to this world because of this unfortunate event. Other sources are pretty straightforward. The elves may have been the angels who chose to stay neutral in the fight for heaven between God on one side and Lucifer against him. So the elves were banished from heaven, but because they did not betray God, they were not sentenced to hell. Instead, they were banished to earth, and they are here since then. There is also an old Icelandic tale that suggests that elves could be the lost children of Adam and Eve. As the tale states, one day God was walking through the Garden of Eden, and Adam and Eve were embarrassed that their children were dirty. So Adam and Eve told their children to go and hide from God so he would not see them in their condition. When God walked up to Adam and Eve and asked them where their children are, they lied and say they don't know. Enraged by their lie, God said, "That which men hide from God, God will hide from man." From that day forward, Adam and Eve, they never see their children again. Yes, you guessed that right. According to the tale, God hid them in Iceland and they become elves. The German tale about elves has a bit of dark twist and suggests that worship of elves and worship of dead ancestors are same thing, because according to this tale, a person can be reborn as an elf after it dies. And according to some modern lore, the elves were simply created as a way to explain some weird and strange things that happened when the world was still young. Whenever happened that people could not explain, of course, blame the elves. Back in modern times, it seems that the elves are more career-oriented. The Christmas movie show the image of the happy, playful elves who help Santa by making toys for human children. But let's not forget, the folktales and legends about the elves are more dark and sinister. That would be all for this video. Thank you for your support. If you have comments, make sure to write them down in the comment section. We would like to hear what is your opinion about these videos. Until the next video, have a great time, stay safe, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure to do that just to be sure that you will not miss our next video. Thank you.